Flux. Definition: to flow or flowing out. Continuous change. This is Hero Flux, a playoff of my other series, Character Conversion. Welcome, I am Drahon, and we are taking characters from every form of media and translating them into the Pathfinder style. This is actually the only series I know of that actually does this. I did some research yesterday and could not find any other channels that does what I am doing today. So, welcome to Hero Flux. If you are from my Dungeons & Dragons character conversion crew, don't worry, I am not changing permanently. I am just changing things up a little bit. I promised a couple of my viewers that I would do more Pathfinder 2nd edition stuff, and this was one of the things I wanted to try. We are taking a look at Legend of Zelda's Link for this particular build. So, if you've seen my Dungeons & Dragons character conversion series, you know that I have already done a Link. But this is a new Link, so Pathfinder. What exactly are we doing here? We take a look at the lore of these characters and try to translate them the best we can to a hero in Pathfinder. So, yeah, that is the best I can explain it. If you have not seen my previous two videos on Pathfinder 2nd edition, Hero Flux, I have done the basics of character creation and the basics of combat. I would recommend checking those out if you are not familiar with this system. I actually have a playlist which this video is also a part of, so I would recommend checking out that playlist. I'm not exactly used to the Pathfinder style, so I might get things wrong here or there, and this isn't going to be a common occurrence. Once I get more used to the Pathfinder style, I will post a few extra videos. I'll probably even start splitting up my videos half and half. Have one day be Pathfinder and another day be Dungeons & Dragons. So keep that in mind. If you want to see more builds like this in the future, leave a comment down below on what character you would like to see next time. So, let's go ahead and get started. I have done enough rambling, and this is probably going to be a long video, because things are definitely different here than they are in Dungeons & Dragons. Starting things off, we are going with the stats. Now, it already gives us a good starting stats with Pathfinder. We can either roll dice, or we can just go with this system here. Similar to the point-buy system. Actually, it's more similar to standard array. But anyway, all of our stats start off at 10 for the purposes of these builds. So, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are all 10. Or, as you probably know them from my previous video covering the basics of character creation, +0 modifier. That's probably the only difference between the core rulebook and the beginner's guide as far as character creation goes, is that it does not deal with a single modifier anymore. But I digress. Let's go ahead and talk about Ancestry. Instead of race, we get Ancestry, which is roughly the same thing. For Link, who is a Hylian, which according to the Legend of Zelda lore is a type of elf. But what elf exactly? Well, for the purposes of this build, I think we should go with the Woodland Elf, since a lot of different versions of Link grow up in a forest. And I want to go ahead and make this part clear. We are taking all versions of Link into consideration. Whether it be Breath of the Wild's Link, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, the original Zelda, all of it is taken in consideration for this build. Since they are technically the same person, even though a couple of Links are of a different generation, either way, Link is Link. We're taking everything into consideration. Moving on. With the elf, we get a +2 modifier to 3 stats, which is a stat bonus. And we also get a weakness, which is Constitution, which actually I kind of like this. This is something that Dungeons & Dragons needs more of, are these stat weaknesses. Basically, instead of increasing the stat by 2 points, which is what we're doing for Dexterity, Intelligence, and Charisma, we are actually decreasing the stat by 2 points, or by 1 modifier if we're just simply going by the modifier rulings. And for elves, they are actually getting a stat weakness in Constitution, so that becomes an 8. Again, I really like this idea. I think Dungeons & Dragons needs to use this more, because weaknesses are great for character development. Now, hit points, we get to start off with 6 hit points because of the elf ancestry. We get a speed of 30 feet. Heritage, we already grabbed the Wood Elf heritage. We get low light vision. This is basically our Dungeons & Dragons equivalent of dark vision. We get to treat dim light as bright light, and darkness as dim light. Actually, I think there's a small difference with low light vision and dark vision. I just can't remember what it is exactly. So forgive me if I do not remember everything. For languages, we get Common, Elven, and 1 extra language equal to our modifier. Intelligence modifier. Since our intelligence modifier is currently a +1, we just get 1 extra language, which is Sylvan. For our Ancestry feat, this is really nice. We get to start off with a feat. We're going to go ahead and just grab the Elven Lore feat, which gives us a trained proficiency in Arcana and Nature skills. Very nice. Let's go ahead and go to background. We don't have a folk hero equivalent to Pathfinder's backgrounds, but that's not going to stop us from getting a similar background, which I'm going to go ahead and grab the warrior background. Since in a couple of versions of Legend of Zelda, Link is actually a part of Zelda's guards, a warrior. So I think that makes sense. Let's go ahead and increase Dexterity and Constitution by 2 points each, bringing our Constitution back up to a 10, more or less erasing the weakness that the Ancestry gave us. And our Dexterity is now on a 14, so really good. We now get another trained proficiency. We're getting Intimidation, and we get a feat from our background, a skill feat. Intimidating Glare. This is another thing I love about Pathfinder, is that you get feats just about every single time you choose something, which is awesome.
Alright, let's talk about class. We're going to pick Fighter for our class here because honestly that seems to be the best fit for Link. We get an extra 10 hit points plus our Constitution modifier, so 16 hit points now. Saving throws, we get Expert in Fortitude and Reflex saves, as well as being trained in Will saving throws. For skills, we get Expert in Perception, and we get trained in Acrobatics, Athletics, Religion, Crafting, and Stealth. Attacks, we get Expert in Simple Weapons, Martial Weapons, and Unarmed Attacks, and trained in Advanced Weapons. For defense, we are trained in All Armor and Unarmored Defense. Our class DC, which I have found out is for your difficulty class on saving throws in the certain abilities for your fighter class, you are also trained in. We get Opportunity Attack, and we get a fighter feat. Go with Sudden Charge. We also get the General feat, Shield Block. And finally, to wrap off the first level build, we get another ability score boost. Grab Dexterity. This will give us a +2 in Dexterity. This is the key ability score. This is what determines our fighter DC. So, our fighter class DC is now Dexterity.
Now, my Dungeons and Dragons folks are going to ask the question, can you multi-class? And the answer is kind of. Yes, kind of. Let me explain by going into the second level of Fighter. We don't get to multi-class per se, but we are able to multi-class by grabbing an archetype feat. This is explained in the class section of the core rulebook. Page number escapes me because I do not have the book on hand. But we are grabbing the archetype feat known as Rogue Dedication. This gives us access to rogue abilities because it is treated as though we are multi-classing. This is another thing I really love about Pathfinder characters, because you could technically create 20 plus characters just off of the same ancestry, background, and class. But anyway, with this rogue dedication, we get some more abilities. First off, we get the trained skills in thievery and lore. We get a skill feat in quick repair is what I'm choosing for this particular feat. We get the surprise attack from the rogue class, and we also get trained class DC and the rogue class DC. We also get a skill feat. I'm going to go with trick magic item. This allows us to be able to use a magic item no matter the restriction on it, which is amazing. So I'm grabbing it because that sounds great. For level 3 fighter, we get Bravery. We get a general feat. We're going to go with Ride, which is pretty cool. It's a whole lot easier to be able to tell our mount what to do, which is awesome. We get a skill increase. Let's go ahead and get ourselves trained in the skill of survival. Skill increase allows us to either become trained in a skill, change one of our trained skills into an expert skill, or, as we'll see later on in this build, change a expert skill into a mastered skill. Again, if you Pathfinder experts know exactly what that means, go ahead and leave that down in the comments below, because I can't remember exactly what that means. At level 4 Fighter, we're going to grab another multi-class archetype feat. We're going to go with Sneak Attacker, which will improve our surprise attack from our rogue dedication. We're also going to get a skill feat. We're going to go with Rapid Mantle. This allows us to quickly climb a ledge that we're dangling from.
At level 5 Fighter, we get an ability score increase, which actually we get 4 ability scores to increase, each of them by 2, which I've got to say that makes character building in Pathfinder that much more interesting. So let's go ahead and increase strength, dexterity, constitution, and wisdom each by 2.
For your Ancestry feat, this is from our Ancestry, we're going to grab Ageless Patience. We get also Fighter Weapon Mastery. We choose a group of weapons, and we get expertise in that weapon group. Even if it's a part of the simple weapons, martial weapons, or even advanced weapons, it automatically becomes an expert proficiency. So we are expertly proficient in this choice of weapon group, the sword group. And this took me a while to understand, because I'm like, what? And once I figured out that a sword is a part of the group, I'm like, oh, okay, we'll just grab swords, because that makes sense. Link primarily uses swords. He does use other weaponry, but swords are his primary focus, so being an expert would make perfect sense. Actually, I think he becomes master in swords. I can't quite remember, but that is still pretty darn good. We get an increase in our proficiency with swords. We get a skill increase. Go ahead and increase your skill in stealth to expert. Level 6 Fighter gets a fighter feat. We're going to go with just a regular fighter feat this time. Grab Adventurous Assault. Next, you'll grab a skill feat. I'm grabbing Quiet Allies. This makes it easier for a group to sneak. That's good. I like that they solved this one problem that Dungeons & Dragons has with stealth. With Quiet Allies, I do remember this. You and you alone get to make the stealth roll, and it counts for your entire group that is sneaking with you. You roll it, and that is everyone's stealth. It is perfect. I love it. Moving on to level 7 Fighter, we get Battlefield Surveyor. A general feat, we're going to go with Feather Step. Skill increase. Go ahead and increase your skill proficiency of stealth to master. We also get weapon specialization, which is pretty cool. Fighter level 8, go ahead and grab a multi-class archetype feat, Felling Strike. And get your skill feat in Swift Sneak. Level 9 fighters get an Ancestry feat, go with Elf Step. You get combat flexibility, Juggernaut, and a skill increase. Go ahead and increase your proficiency in acrobatics to expert.
And for level 10, we get another ability score improvement. Go ahead and increase your 4 ability scores, each by 2. Strength, Con, and Wisdom. Now for Dexterity, instead of increasing it by 2, since it's already at an 18, we only get to increase it by 1 point, which honestly that makes sense. And we also get another fighter feat, go for sudden leap, and go for a skill feat of steady balance. Now, I do hope you enjoyed. I do apologize for the edits. I was informed that I did a couple of things incorrectly, but that is fine. That is what learning is for. But with that being said, this has been Drayhan, and I am offline.